created the slum and the ghetto that you're living in. Nothing but a debt.
And since the American and begin to see that the only way you can get freedom is to get it the same way the white man in this country got it from England. Or
integrate. Surely it must lead to demands for your own state in America.
the black people in this country have been like a misfit wife married to the white man here who hasn't treated us right. And today, since we have given up all hope of him ever changing, we want a divorce. We want a complete separation, but we want to of being colonial powers when he mastered colonialism before those countries ever knew what it was.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Don't know who Malcolm X is. Malcolm X is a civil rights leader, an activist, a Muslim. Well, he converted. He wasn't always that way, which we'll get into. But he was associated with the Nation of Islam. Most of us know what organization with the Nation of Islam represents. It's a black civil rights group that fights for black rights. Most of us know Minister Farrakhan, and then Elijah Muhammad is the one who taught Malcolm X and Minister Farrakhan about the Nation of Islam and being Muslim. So yeah, and then of course Malcolm X always gets associated with Martin Luther King. They was both in the 60s. They both died in the 60s. When the civil rights was at its highest. So they get the most credit, even though it was a lot of people who played a factor like Rosa Parks and such in the civil rights movement. But Malcolm X and Martin Luther King is probably the two most famous, and like they the face of the civil rights movement. So yeah, so Malcolm X birthday is May 19th, 1925, so it was just 2 days ago. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and that's funny because somebody was just saying, is there any black people in Omaha, Nebraska? So there you go. Malcolm X was born there. He died on February 21st, 1965. He was 39 years old. Right now I think he'd be 70, yeah, or 69. He would be right now if he was still alive. No, I'm tripping. Think he'll be 99. If I'm not mistaken. Oh, my bad. He'll be 99 this year. He would have been 99. So Malcolm X he has a sun in Taurus, a moon in Aries, a Mercury in Taurus, a Venus in Gemini, a Mars in Cancer, a Jupiter in Capricorn, a Saturn in Scorpio, a Uranus in Pisces, a Neptune in Leo, a Pluto in Cancer, a North Node in Leo, a Length in Cancer, and then his rising sign is a Leo. So getting into it, right off rip, I noticed that he got the same sun, moon, and rising sign as Janet Jackson, who I just did. They both there's a sun in Taurus, moon in Aries, and then a rising in Leo. So um you could take that for what it's worth, but I know they other planets is different. Then of course then I forgot to say, like I always say, is that how you was born and how you was raised and where you was raised, it's gonna play a factor into your personality. I always usually say that every video. I forgot. So the era that you was born in, the family that you was born in, of course, all of that is going to affect your personality also. So, and then how you was taught, how you was led, what you was pushed towards, all of them things is going to play a factor. But just with him having a Taurus sun, moon and Aries, and then a rising like Leo, like Janet Jackson they gonna share a lot of similarities, which I could see also, because both of them having a rising in Leo can show why both of them love the spotlight and want to be in the spotlight. The same for the moon and Aries. Then it can also explain why they a little bit more vocal and out there than the typical Taurus. Because like I always say about Taurus is known for being laid back and chill for the most part. Homebodies, like Taurus is not people who really seek out being in the spotlight. Like a Taurus is not somebody who really can care about being famous as much as other signs will. But when you got a rising in Leo and a moon in Aries, then yeah, you can have because a lot of fire signs, especially Leo, aspires to be in the spotlight. But anyway, so um like I always say, every video, if you don't know what your sun, moon, and rising sign is, I always say that your sun, moon, and rising is considered the big three. Them the three most important signs that tells the most about your personality, even though every planet means something. But your sun, moon, and rising sign is basically will sum up the main part of your personality in the way that you act. Every other planet just gonna affect how you like your Mercury is the planet of communication, so that's going to affect how you communicate and your thought process. Venus is going to control your love life and your partnership. Mars is going to be your aggression style and how aggressive you is. So every planet going to deal with different aspects of your life, but your sun sign is the way that you think, your moon sign is the way that you feel, and then your rising sign is how people view you. So them gonna be the three main ones, the way that you think, the way that you feel, and then how people look at you and view you in the world. Like for a Leo, we know that Leos is known, well, if you don't know, Leos is known for being in the spotlight, for shining, for wanting to be a star. A lot of Leos is actors, because they crave being famous in the spotlight more so probably than any other sign. Um, so, but yeah, so getting into his sun being in Taurus. So like I said, the sun sign is the way that you think. So Taurus, things that we know about Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign, just like Virgo and Capricorn. So earth signs is dealing with stability. All earth signs is going to want to have a stable life when it comes to finances, having a steady job and having a steady relationship like a marriage. Most earth signs are the ones who marry and the ones who have long term. Well, they can be business, whether it's a career, a business, but they really about putting in the work. They the workaholics of the zodiac because like I said, they crave stability, they crave practical things. That's what it is. They think about everything practical, about how it be turned into tangible things, like material items or money or whatever thoughts they have, they want to put that into reality and make that happen in a practical way. So what else about then? Taurus is a fixed sign, so they known for being stubborn. So Taurus is often regarded as the most stubborn sign. So a lot of Taurus don't like to change their mind. Once their mind is made up, it's going to be impossible to change it. But then when it comes to earth and practical things, they are the ones that can stay at a job the longest, that can see a project all the way through. Anything that they start, they can be the ones to finish it. And then it's ruled by Venus. So Venus, every planet is ruled by a certain sign. So Venus is ruled by Libra and Taurus, and it's the planet of love, beauty, and harmony, and it's ruled over your partnership. So every Taurus is going to value beauty. That's why Taurus and Libras can be two of the biggest signs when it comes to looks and dating somebody, for their physical attractiveness. They both going to crave harmony and peace in their life. So a lot of Taurus and Libras is not going to like to argue and be involved in a lot of drama. And then a lot of Venus, a lot of Taurus and Libras is going to be big into justice. Libra is the sign of justice, but Taurus also, because they rule by Venus, is going to care about having peace in the world, harmony, justice, seeing that people is done right and treated fairly. So that's all things that's associated with Taurus. And then Taurus is also symbolized by the bull. So a lot of Taurus can be hard-headed, speaking to them being fixed and stubborn. And then a lot of Taurus can, when they angry, it take a lot to get them angry. But when they angry, they really angry and they really go off. So, and then especially with his moon being in Aries, because Aries is a fire sign, just like Leo and Sagittarius, and it's just like what it sounds like. They known for being fiery, having a temper, being impulsive, being brave, being outgoing. It's all of the things that's associated with being a fire sign. And then Aries by itself is known for really being blunt. That's another thing about fire signs, being blunt and straightforward, telling it like it is, not holding no punches, not big into lying to people, just they straight up and straightforward. So that's what Aries is like. So when you combine the two, his sun being a Taurus and his moon being the Aries, is gonna speak to somebody who kind of well balanced, because Taurus, like I said, is known for being laid back and Aries is known for being outgoing. So it could be a mixture of both. But then when he gets mad, he really gets mad because of the Aries moon can make him a little bit more quicker to get mad than a typical Taurus. But when he do get mad, just like a Taurus, he can be like a bull, but even more so because of his Aries moon. So it's somebody who gonna really be blunt and straightforward, and somebody who gonna really, somebody that you're not gonna really want to anger, because when they anger, they can really, can really go off for real, or maybe even be violent. So that's how his sun and moon signs goes with each other, just like with Janet Jackson. That's why he could be more so comfortable with doing the speaking that he did, talking, being out there, being able to be sociable and talking to people and not caring about being in the spotlight and stuff. That he definitely gets that from his moon in Aries. Because if he was like a sun in Taurus, um, and then let me think of another, or like a moon in Scorpio or something like that, he might not be as outgoing that he is. But then again, it would depend on what his Mars is in, because your Mars rules your aggression style and your outward personality. So if he had a Mars in Aries, he might still be that way. But getting into the breakdown of what they say about Sun and Taurus, just in case for anything that I might have missed about Taurus. So it says that Taurus are generally strong, quiet, deliberate, practical, exciting, determined, persistent, preserving, compassionate, and loyal. They like getting their hands on their work, building things and seeing the tangible practical results of their effort. Routine work does not bother them as long as the end result is useful and serves some concrete purpose. Possessions and material things are usually of great significance to Taurus. This is because they don't feel emotionally secure unless they can see and touch the objects they own. The intense need to possess and enjoy the senses can drive Taurus to be extremely productive or extremely inquisitive. Lesser evolved Taurus can treat people as objects or possessions, this leading to difficulty in relationships. Taurus people work at a slower pace than most, but they always finish whatever projects they start. Because of this, they are reliable, trustworthy, careful, and steadfast. They are better at satiating what others have started rather than starting things themselves. Taurus can be led but never pushed. It takes a lot to make a Taurus mad. Yet if they are pushed over the edge, well, all heck can break loose. Simply imagine an angry bull, and Malcolm X knows what a Taurus is capable of when he is pushed too far. Malcolm X knows the saying about a bull in a china shop. When angered, Taurus need plenty of time to cool down. It's best to just leave them alone. Malcolm X know when things are out of their system. With anything, Taurus need to assimilate and mull over things. Don't rush them or push them. Taurus are slow to change their opinions, but once changed, it is very difficult to change them back. People tend to feel secure around Taurus. In time of crisis, they are generally cool and collected and have the patience and ability to come up with practical solutions to problems. Taurus hate pain and being sick. Taurus love of harmony and beauty, and they can be extremely affectionate, but they do have a decided fear of loss. The feelings that usually accompany this fear of loss are possessiveness, jealousy, laziness, stubbornness, and extravagance. If there is no desire to possess anything or anyone, then there is no fear of loss. Taurus need to learn to desire only mental and spiritual things, to release the desire to possess people emotionally and physically. Their other need is to find a true sense of values. They need to learn detachment. They must be willing to let go of people and things. So yeah, that's all things about Taurus for sure. So I'm gonna read what they say about the moon and Aries real quick. So it says adaptability and inconsistency in his efforts to initiate are present here. Frequent emotional uphills due to fiery temper are possible. Malcolm X patient isn't his strong suit, and if things don't go his way, well, he can go off like a bolt of lightning. Malcolm X's tendency is to be spontaneous, temperamental, imperious, headstrong, and he disliked restraint. Malcolm X's thoughts, actions, and voice are all very plain, and everyone knows how he feels. Malcolm X is unafraid to say what he thinks. Malcolm X can be a very bossy individual if he does not try to control his moves. A desire to be in the limelight or in charge of things is present. Malcolm X hates showing any personal weakness or that he needs any support, comfort, or nurturing from others. Malcolm X's enthusiasm for starting new projects is contagious and he is probably a better starter than a finisher. Malcolm X is adventurous, courageous, and independent. Malcolm X doesn't like complainers and is always ready to meet any challenge. A fair amount of physical activity is good for Malcolm X, so he can work off those moves he get into once in a while. Malcolm X have a creative, flamboyant personality that likes to trailblaze in unusual adventures. Perhaps Malcolm X's accomplishments cover inferiority feelings that lie beneath the surface. So yeah, that's all the things about Moon and Aries. Cause I got a Moon and Aries. So just like I said, how it's Sun and Taurus and Moon and Aries relates, like they said, it's that Aries is big into starting things but not finishing things. But Taurus are known for finishing things that they start. So it can be a good balance. The Moon and Aries helps them initiate things, and then the Sun and Taurus helps them finish things. Um, and then also, like they said, where is it at? Okay, so like it says that Malcolm X is adventurous, courageous, and independent, which we all know. Everybody knows how he feels about things. That's a big thing that we know about Malcolm X, that he told it like it is. He was straightforward, um, honest, and told it like it was. That's what we know a lot about Malcolm X, and a lot of that can relate to his moon and Aries, but his Sun and Taurus, that can speak to him. You know, he was married, and I forgot. I'm gonna see how many kids he had, but I know him and his wife had a bunch of kids. Um, and then it can speak to like his stubborn streak of being stubborn and not changing his mind. That we know a lot about Malcolm X. As far as like material things and stability, we know that the time that Malcolm X was in and the job that he did, he wasn't really compensated well financially. And then we know that was the civil rights era, so where Black people wasn't able to you was only able to get a certain amount of jobs. Most Black people wasn't able to work at the best job, had the best resources and stuff like that. But it makes sense that that's what he was fighting for, to have equality and to have a chance to, have the best in life. What he truly craved and wanted in life. And then, what else? Concrete purpose. So as far as like seeing tangible and practical results, that usually we think of that in a new and in today's time as being money and material items, but back then even seeing something tangible as like your hard work, like your speeches, people turning out to see you, coming to see you, believing in what you preaching and saying can also be a tangible result also, because it's still something that you can see and you can see manifesting. And then, as we know, Malcolm X died early at 39, because he really didn't become a civil rights leader and become known until he was in his 30s, because we know before that he went to jail. And once he went to jail, or prison, not sure which one, that's when he discovered the Nation of Islam and, really changed his life around. So he didn't really have a long life once he became the revolutionary activist that he is. Well, that he was, not that he passed. But before that, we know that Malcolm X was a pimp, a booster. So he was really, um, out there just living a wild life for real. And then we know that that can relate to his moon and Aries, him having this out there going personality. But then a lot of tourists, if you get to know him also, like, trying to think if you know who Charleston White is. It was crazy when I found out that he was a Taurus. And Dame Dash, if you know Dame Dash from with Jay-Z, is also a Taurus, and we know how vocal both of them is, and they're kind of out there personality and having a business mind and stuff like that. That can definitely speak to their personality. I'm not sure what Charleston White moon sign is, but I think Dame Dash moon sign is a Leo. Yeah, it was a Leo. So he also got a fire moon sign. So that could speak to why he outgoing in person and has an outgoing personality with his thoughts. So um So yeah, so that's the sun and moon and Taurus and Aries and how they relate to each other and his personality. And then his Mercury is also in Taurus. So like I said, Mercury is the planet of communication and it's ruled by Gemini and Virgo. So Mercury gonna control your communication style, how you communicate with people. Like if people with a Mercury and Aries is usually more blunt and straightforward and aggressive with the way that they talk. People who have a Mercury and Gemini or Virgo, they can be great speakers. Most of them are musicians or like to make music or rap or something like that, or political figures. If you have a Mercury in the air sign, you could be more intellectual and liking to write and speak. And then in this case, if you have a Mercury in the earth sign or like in Taurus, you're gonna be more so about communicating and thinking about practical things. Things that has to either do with like business minded or things that has to relate to being stable in life, or the practical things in life, like being in a relationship, um, career, work life, and things like that. And then also, Mercury and Taurus is also going to be somebody who can be like, slow in speech, but like really tell it like it is and like, have a full, well out thought process. And then they also going to be fixed in communication. So, however they talk or however they speak, that's just the way that it's going to be. They're not going to be open to changing the way that they communicate and speak to people, and their thought process is also going to be stubborn. So what it says about Mercury and Taurus, so it said Malcolm X's manner of thought and speech is slow and quite deliberate. Malcolm X does not change his mind quickly and sees no reason to do so. Malcolm X is determined, practical, and methodical, and conservative in most things he does. Malcolm X has patience and the abilities to stick with things until the end. Malcolm X may assimilate material at a slower pace than others, but once a concept is learned, it is never forgotten. Malcolm X hates being forced to rush into a decision or an action, especially if he has not been given time to think it all through and evaluate the practicalities of the situation. That's it. Once Malcolm X has made his mind up, it will take a lot of effort to undo the damage. Perseverance is one of Malcolm X's best traits. Malcolm X enjoys satiating what others have started, especially if he can see the tangible, practical results. Malcolm X loves to build things. Malcolm X succeeds not so much because of his mental brilliance, but because he has the ability to concentrate and follow a project through its completion. Malcolm X may have a artistic or musical aptitude. Perhaps Malcolm X sings or speaks for a living. Malcolm X is a person who has a lot of common sense. So there we go. We know a lot of this speaks to Malcolm X because, like I said, there's somebody who sings or speaks for a living. So I think that Janet Jackson had a Mercury and Taurus also. I remember somebody saying that somebody sings. So yeah, her and Janet Jackson and Malcolm X actually share a lot of the same birth chart. And then it also said that this is somebody who speaks for a living. So we know that um Malcolm X does speak for a living. So that his Mercury and Taurus can speak to that. Then it says there's somebody with a lot of common sense, which we know that Malcolm X is known for having a lot of common sense, for sure. Um, How that is as his mind. It will take a lot to do. Perseverance is one of his. So yes, his perseverance is one of his best traits, which we know that he was big on persevering, changing his life around for real. Malcolm X was one of the original people who went to prison and came out, a whole new person and changed his life around. So a lot of Malcolm X that we know about Malcolm X can be contributed to his Mercury and Taurus, but then also I could see a lot of his Moon and Aries also. His Venus is in Gemini, so like I said, Venus is the planet of love, beauty, and harmony, and it can rule your partnership and your love life. Um, Ruled by Libra and Taurus. His is in Gemini. We know Gemini is another air sign, just like Libra, and then Aquarius is the other one. So we know that Geminis are dealing with dual nature, multiple personalities. That's what Geminis is known for. Some people call them two-faced, but really it's because every Gemini is known to have two sides. Geminis love communicating, love talking. They very social people, love communicating with people, love being outgoing, quick-minded. A lot of Geminis is known for being smart. So them all things that's associated with Gemini. So with his being in Venus, that's gonna be his love style. So he can be attracted to people who love to communicate, who loves to talk. Whoever he's dating is gonna have to be somebody who's big on communication, big on, speaking. They gonna have to share that intellectual combination between each other. Um, Trying to think what else about Venus and Gemini. It can be somebody who's um some Venus and Geminis can be like somebody who dates a lot of people, um, known for, like, they can be players, they can get around for sure, because we know that about Gemini. So we know that Malcolm X did get married and was faithful, but like I said, before he turned his life around, he was, I think, known as a pimp and having a lot of women and stuff. So that could speak to his Venus and Gemini. So just this the time when I look into his love life, or who he dated, to see if it lines up. So they actually got her right here. Betty Shabazz was his wife. She was married to Malcolm X. So her birthday is May 28th, 1934. So she's a Gemini. She was born in Michigan. She died on June 23rd, 1977, at 63 years old. So her sun is in Gemini, her moon is in Sagittarius, her Venus is in Aries, and then her rising is in Virgo. So right off with her sun being in Gemini, that Gemini and Taurus is not the best relationship. They sun signs don't line up. It's not the perfect match, but they moon signs line up because she's a Sagittarius moon, he's the Aries moon, so it's two fire signs. And then her Venus goes with his Venus. Aries and Gemini goes together because it's an air and fire sign. We know that air signs usually date incompatible with other air signs and fire signs, and then earth signs is usually compatible with other earth signs and water signs. So they Venus lines up, and then they moon sign does line up, and then his sun and Gemini will match up with her sun, and Gemini will match up with his moon and Aries also, because it's still air and fire. And then with her sun being in Gemini, his Venus being in Gemini, then that can also line up when it comes to partnership. So they chart do line up, for sure. She's a rising in Virgo, his is in Leo, so that typically gonna go together. But your rising sign doesn't really matter as much when it comes to your relationship and your dating life. It's really your sun, moon, and Venus that matters the most. So for the most part, they compatible. They sun signs don't line up, but they moon signs and they Venus sign does. And then her Venus sign and his moon sign also lines up. So that could speak to their relationship. So why they was compatible. So it says about Venus and Gemini. So it says in matters of love and romance, a person's sense of humor, intellect, and communication skills attract Malcolm X more than a physical appearance. Malcolm X desires a partner who is mentally stimulating, curious. Malcolm desires a partner who is mentally stimulating, curious, one who can challenge his mind and keeps him from getting bored. Relationships where talking, sharing ideas, going places, and learning new things together are highly preferred and needed. Malcolm X needs a lot of social stimulation and can be a bit of a flirt. Jealous and possessive partners turn him off. Malcolm X is charming, friendly, enjoys meeting new people. Malcolm X can be fickle in the matters of love and may have a tendency to desire more than one love interest at a time. Malcolm X enjoys the fun and excitement of love, yet may fear its obligations. Malcolm X feelings can be well expressed through speaking, through writing or poetry, or perhaps through art where he gets a chance to work with his hands. Malcolm X emotions are ruled by his mind. He may prefer intellectualizing his feelings if Venus is poorly extracted. Malcolm X breathing may be shallow and there may be poor oxygen of the blood. So that's all things about Venus and Gemini. So as we know, his feelings can be well expressed through speaking, writing, or poetry, which we know that he did. His emotions is ruled by the mind, which makes sense. Then it's saying that he's going to want to date somebody who, like I said, is intellectually there with them, who he can communicate, who somebody who mentally stimulated him, basically, and prevents him from getting bored. So we know that his wife Shabbat, she is a Gemini, so they can share that a lot also because she gonna crave them same things with her son being a Gemini, somebody who can mentally stimulate her mind and somebody that she can communicate well. Um and they have a great mental communicate connection between each other. The mental connection gonna be very important for both of them, so that can make sense why they was together. Then his Mars is in Cancer. So, like I said, Mars is your aggression style ruled by Aries, and it's gonna be and it also rule your sexuality, your sexual life also. So, his is in Cancer. Cancer is a water sign, just like Scorpio and Pisces. So it's dealing with emotions and feelings. All water signs is they are the emotional ones of the zodiac. So Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer are gonna all be emotional people. So when it comes to Mars and Cancer, his aggression style, there's gonna be somebody who gonna be big on their emotions and the way that they feel, so that can relate back to his moon being in Aries. And then Cancer just rules the family life. That's what Cancer is known for, being nurturing and caring about the family and the home life. They the opposite of Capricorn. So Capricorn rules the work life, and Capricorn is big into working and business minded, and Cancers are more so focused on relationships and family. So that can speak to Malcolm X being big on family, big on caring about family, caring about people, nurturing, and that can explain why he's such a people person and he cares a lot about his people, being black people. Then that can explain why also with him being a Taurus, why he was married. And I forget, but I know he had a lot of kids too. I can't even remember how many kids he had. I gotta check into. So he had 6 kids. So these is his, oh, and I forgot he had all girls. I forgot about that. Yeah, he had 6 girls like Kobe. I think Kobe Bryant got 5 girls. So um yeah, so he had 6 girls. So that could speak to his Mars being in Cancer, why he would want a big family and he big about, he care a lot about the family life. So I think this might be the first Mars in Cancer I did. I'm not sure. But I know Janet Jackson didn't have, or no other Taurus had a Mars in Cancer. So it says Malcolm X avoids direct confrontations with others, preferring to sidestep issues or attack them indirectly. Aggressive, competitive behavior makes Malcolm X uncomfortable. Malcolm X ego drive is not very strong, and he is not especially ambitious or eager to push his way to the top. Inner satisfaction is more important to Malcolm X. Malcolm X may feel inadequate in situations that call for strong, forceful action. But when Malcolm X feels his loved ones or his family or anyone he cares about is being threatened, then he will fight and defend with all tenacity in the world. That brings out Malcolm X very fiery, fiercely protective side. Impulse and instinct take over, and Malcolm X will battle until the end if needed. Malcolm X goal and actions tend to center around his family and loved ones, and they are very personal. Great sacrifices can be made for them, even though they may be in the wrong. Being sensitive to stress, Malcolm X does not handle high pressure competitive situations very well. Malcolm X can be very touchy, moody, irritable, and difficult to be around when there are many demands or tensions at work. Malcolm X's energy level is not constant and is very dependent on his emotional state at the time, especially as regards his emotional harmony or discord at home. Malcolm X should avoid eating when emotionally upset, at this plays havoc with his digestive system. Malcolm X is hardworking, sympathetic, moody, defensive, tenacious, intuitive, instinctive, sensitive, and perhaps overly emotional. Control of his emotions is important to his health and well-being. So we know that, that's all things about cancers for sure. So how it relates to Malcolm X, like I said, it could be somebody that's willing to stand up and fight for his family and the ones that he loved, which you know that he did. He was fighting to make for Black people, but also his family, because his family was Black and them having a better life. Um, so that can explain that. That's why his passion and his aggressive style in life was towards something that has to deal with protecting his family and people that's close to him and people that he loves. So his Mars and Cancer can definitely speak to that. And then what else? And then it speaks to Malcolm X could be a little bit more emotional. There's some people and he can be big on the way that he feeling his feelings. So if you have a strong feeling towards something, he will work and go towards that. But with his Mars and Cancer speaks to the most is that why he fought for people rights and the rights of his people and the rights to people that he loved and wanted to protect, which he ended up ultimately losing his life over. So Jupiter is in Capricorn, so Jupiter is ruled by Sagittarius, and it's the planet of wisdom, luck, higher learning, um, travel, the travel life. What else? Expansion and growth, how you expand and grow as a person. So his is in Capricorn. Capricorn is another earth sign just like Taurus. So it's dealing with being stable and stability. And then we know, like I said, Capricorn, the opposite of Cancer, so it rules the work life. A lot of Capricorns is going to be known for being workaholics or business minded. It's ruled by Saturn, which I'm going to get into next, and Saturn rules hard work and discipline, the hard life lessons and karma. So them all things associated with Capricorn. So it says about his Jupiter and Capricorn. Malcolm X positive qualities are honesty, sincerity, faithfulness, and unity, resourcefulness, and some degree mechanical ability. Malcolm X attempts at growth, expansion, and meeting new opportunities and getting ahead in the world are met with reserve, discipline, caution, system, practicality in the organization. Malcolm X has a desire for material success, yet this may not bring satisfaction or happiness if gained. Malcolm X may be a tendency toward measureless and withholding himself from the rest of the world, financially and emotionally. Malcolm X hates waste, is self-reliant and self-controlled, and possesses a desire to have authority over others. Malcolm X can raise to great heights if he stays honest, truthful, respectful, and keep his nose clean, doing everything above broad. So that that's a Jupiter and Capricorn. So how all of the things relate to Malcolm X, We know the last line is definitely true. It says he can rise to great heights if he stays honest, truthful, and respectful, which we know that he did. And then it said that he can possess a desire to have authority over others. So that can make a lot of sense. Also, will we know him being a civil rights leader? He did have a lot of authority over others. He was the face, of his people. So, he spoke for a lot of people. He represented a lot of people. And then it also said that he can have the ability to be disciplined, which we know, and have a great and care a lot about being organized or having an organization, which we know that he did. He can be honest, sincere, faithful, which are things that we know about Malcolm X. So a lot of this can speak to his Jupiter and Capricorn for sure. Only thing that it doesn't is material success, which we don't know that he want. But like I said, at that time, it's bigger things to worry about than, material things. So if Saturn is in Scorpio, like I said, Saturn is ruled by Capricorn. Um, and then like I said, it rules over hard work, discipline, karma, um, what else? Authority, them some of the things that Saturn rules over. So his is in Scorpio. So Scorpio is another water sign, just like I said, Pisces and Cancer. So it's dealing with the emotions. The difference between Scorpio versus the other water signs is that Scorpio is intense emotion. So Scorpios is ones that can like really like when they get emotional, it can be like more so intense. So they can have a tendency to be violent, like P. Diddy and Ike Turner, Jocelyn. That's a lot of Scorpios that's like that. Not all, but they tend to can be more violent when they, in their emotions and in their feelings. And then of course, Scorpios are known for being jealous and possessive. They known for keeping secrets and like uncovering secrets. They can be dark and mysterious. They a fixed sign just like Taurus, so a lot of Scorpios not gonna like to change the way that they feel because it's dealing with feelings. So a lot of Scorpios can be stubborn when it comes to the way that they feel about things and not wanting to change that. So it says about Saturn and Scorpio. Malcolm X can be very self-disciplined. Malcolm X has the executive ability and it had the exclusive ability and is perceptive and is perceptive and extremely captible. Malcolm X may have psychic ability. People may find him difficult to understand because of his reserved exterior and secretness. Malcolm X's mind may be mechanically oriented and he is resourceful even under the most adverse circumstances. Patient and persistent, the action and energy of Mars are combined with the forethought of Saturn in a most wonderful combination. Whatever he does is done with intensity. On the negative side, though, there is a danger of stubbornness, revenge, lack of forgiveness, resentment, and ruthlessness. Tendencies to grub for money and pristine can cause harm. There can be health problems with constipation or hemorrhoids. There is a need to transform Malcolm X desires. Malcolm X needs to learn when and how to let go. This also applies to ex, 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 eliminating bodily functions. Holding on to anger and can cause stones to develop in the gallbladder or kidney. So that part I always try to stay around because I don't know how true that is when it comes to how it affects your health, as far as like, your gallbladder, having problems with your gallbladder or kidneys and stuff like that. But I'm just going to speak to the rest of it, what it was saying about his personality. So it says that this person can be patient and persistent. Everything that he does with intensity. Like I said, that of a Scorpio. So without what we know about Malcolm X, he was very intense in his personality and very in everything that he does, and that can also speak to his moon and Aries, of course. Um, it says that he could be stubborn, prey for beings, have a lack of forgiveness, resentment, and can be ruthless. Um, so yeah, I mean that's basically it about Saturn and Scorpio. Makes you conduct research and intense work for all events in life. You will not work with anyone with a superficial attitude. Saturn and Scorpio have strong likes and dislikes as they do not believe in being in dilemma. So it's gonna be somebody who can be black and white in the way that they think. But yeah, it's gonna be somebody who's gonna be intense in their work and do a lot of research. So which we know about Malcolm X, he was very intense in what he was speaking for and what he was, representing, which was his work. So next is his Uranus and Pisces. So Uranus is ruled by Aquarius. It's the planet of rebellion, forward thinking, friendships, uh um, technology, if I didn't say technology, friendships, sudden events, truth telling, it's just some of the things that Uranus rules. So his is in Pisces. We know Pisces is the other water sign, along with Scorpio and Cancer. So it's also dealing with the emotions and the feelings. Oh, I got love. Okay, so stick. Okay, so it says means you are a herd of change. Those around you know that when you come around, change comes with you. Free willing Uranus and Pisces means your subconscious is always on the lookout for how to shake things up. So a unique blend of individuality and intuition. It signifies individuals who honor their individuality in a peaceful, present, and compassionate manner. So how to speak to, like they said, that there's somebody who can be big on change and people can view you as somebody who brings change with them. So we know that that has to deal with Malcolm X. That's all that he was about, was making a change in the world, bringing change to the world. So that could speak to his Uranus and Pisces for sure, how it relates to him. So if Neptune is in Leo, Neptune is ruled by Pisces, and it rules the spiritual world, dreams, illusions, and is what Neptune is mostly associated with. Then being artist like music, art, and stuff is also ruled by Neptune. So his is in Leo. We know another fire sign. So, and then Leo's is, like I said, dealing with being a star, dealing with being brave and courageous, um, ruled by the sun. So they gonna want to be in the spotlight. A lot of Leos, just like I said, other fire signs are impulsive, brave, straightforward, tell it like it is. So unique blend of deep spirituality with a fiercely self-expression, creativity, and playfulness. These individuals are naturally giving, accepting, and creative with a strong focus on self-expression. So Their creative, self-expressive, and entertaining qualities are apparent in their personality and experiences, making them loved and admired by many. Additionally, their compassionate and accepting nature makes them excellent companions. So, yeah, we know all of these things about Malcolm X for sure. Was definitely loved and admired by a lot of people. Definitely was creative and self-expressive, was big on expressing themselves because that's where mainly what they saying about a Neptune and Leo is that is somebody who gonna care a lot about expressing themselves and having a lot of self-expression. Yeah, fiery, self-expressive, and they can, and also can be a big on a spiritual person also, like big when it comes to, can be big into spiritual things and higher learning, which we know he is being a Muslim. So of course he was very spiritual, like Muslims is, um, giving and accepting and creative, all things that we know is associated with Malcolm X. So it's Pluto is in Cancer. Pluto is ruled by Scorpio. And it's the planet of death and transformation. Transforming yourself into something different, as you age and get new life experiences. Then it also rules secrets and dark and like I said, mysterious things, just like that of a Scorpio. So his is in Cancer, which I already went over what a Cancer is about. Another water sign. Placement of Pluto in Cancer brings about a unique blend of deep transformational abilities manifested in nurturing and protective ways. These individuals are often characterized by their ability to guide others through profound emotional transformations due to their deep understanding of emotional landscapes. So your sense of security can be delicate with the Pluto and Cancer, and you can have heightened emotional sensitivity. Since this is the planet that rules the unconscious, childhood traumas and wounds can stick in your psyche, creating a false sense of danger in the world. So yeah, that's all things about Pluto and Cancer. So it's looking like you got Malcolm X got one, two, three, four. Yeah, four water planets. One, two, three Earth planets. And then he got one fire sign and one air sign in his chart. So he mostly water and earth, which is a nice blend of the two. It's kind of funny that Malcolm X is a little bit more like you would think it would be more air in his chart, how intellectual he was and big into, being like intellectual and communicating and being social. Um, you would think he would have more air in his chart, but I can still see it because, like I said, his Venus and Gemini um can speak for a lot. But with all of the air and earth in this chart, it's gonna speak to somebody who's gonna be emotional, gonna be big with emotions in a way that, big on his feelings and knowing how we feel and expressing his feelings. But then it's also gonna be somebody who craves stability a lot. That's going to be big into having a steady job, a steady relationship, and things like that. So, which we know about Malcolm X. So it's mostly earth and water in Malcolm X chart. So you could take that how you want to. And then his North Node is in Leo. So North Node is your driven and your passion in life is what life puts you towards. It could be, underlining what your purpose is in life. So we already know without me looking it up is that his is in Leo. So he can aspire to be the star, just like I said, just about like his rising in Leo. Somebody who wants to be in the forefront, somebody who's wants to be, even famous to a degree. If your North Node is in Leo, your lifetime purpose is to be more courageous and let yourself shine in front of a crowd. Having a North Node in Leo is all about learning to take on more leadership roles when it comes to your career and group dynamics. As a North Node Leo, use your intuition over your intellect. So yeah, we already know that's what Malcolm X's purpose, and that's what he was driven to in life, is to shine in front of a crowd, which he did, and having leadership roles, both which he did. So his North Node in Leo could speak to, his direction and what he was pulled towards and ended up doing in life. So, that speaks for itself, but that's big, his North Node in Leo. Because like I said, that's your purpose in life. So he went towards his purpose in life, which was to shine in front of a crowd. His lymph is in Cancer. So your lymph is the things that's hidden from the world. It's the taboo side of you. It's the side that you don't show other people. It's what you try to hide from the world. And this also can be the thing that you have to overcome in your life to really, that's the thing that you have to overcome the most, because it's the thing that you kind of, I guess you could say that you the most scared of. With it being in Cancer, we know that that's going to relate to family. So it says, your maternal and nurturing. If you have a Cancer or lymph, you have a special gift for understanding others' needs, and you love to take care of people. This can be a positive thing, but the lymph also represents the shadow side of these traits. So, like I said, it's the things that you try to keep and hold away from people. But basically, it means that Malcolm X can have a big understanding of other people's needs, and he can love to take care of people and nurture people just like that of a Cancer, which we know he also did. So that's something that he could have struggled with in life, but as he got older, and then, like I said, once he found himself and joined the Nation of Islam, that could really have helped him with that understanding what he was really good at in life and what he was like. He was trying to he knew that he wanted, but had a hard time expressing it, and might not even realize that that's what he really wanted in life until they showed him. So, that's his lymph and Cancer, is somebody who's gonna be big into being nurturing and caring about other people's needs, helping people, and caring about his family. That can be that was kind of taboo to him, that the shadow side of him, that he didn't like to show people, that he was that vulnerable when it comes to like being nurturing and caring. So yeah, that's his lymph and Cancer. Um so yeah, that's his chart for the most part. I just try to stay with the planets. I don't get into the houses, because all houses, if you look at it's all over here. So it's all relating to the planets and the signs anyway. But houses can break down more in depth about which area about different areas in your life, because it said each house is associated with a set of traits beginning with the self and expanding outward into society and beyond. That's what each house is represents. And then planets, is you could think of the planets as a symbolizing core parts of the human personality, and the signs as different colors of consciousness through which they filter. So that's the differences between the two. But we'd be here a whole nother 30 minutes, hour, if I broke down the houses. But the planets is enough to speak to a person's personality and the way that they act, which we mostly care about anyway, what we want to know the most anyway. So that's Malcolm X birth chart. Definitely, they got Denzel over here because he played Malcolm X in the movie that Spike Lee produced. That's probably why they got them both over here. So that was a great movie to watch. It's a long movie. Never forget, that movie was like 3, 4 hours. But Denzel always play a great part. And if you don't know a lot about Malcolm X, I would suggest you watch that movie for sure. It'll give you, it basically goes over his entire life. And then So yeah, everything relates to Malcolm X. I could see this all. I could see his chart matching up with his personality, the Leo rising, then like I said, the Leo North Node pointing him towards speaking into a crowd, and Craven, and even his Neptune is in Leo, being a star and speaking to people and having that drive for the limelight. Then I could see the moon in Aries also making him social and fiery and having a temper and being outgoing, because we know that Malcolm X was always associated with being more fiery than Martin Luther King was, and more so like, fighting back. And we know the famous picture of Malcolm X holding a gun, looking out the window. So we know that can all relate to his moon being a Cancer. Because I know that Martin Luther King is a Capricorn. So they both got sun in earth signs. And then his Taurus can explain why he's his stubbornness and his crave to be stable and in relationships. And like they said, his Mercury and Taurus also gave why he was somebody who can be a speaker for a living, just like it said. So all of these things, in his Venus, like I said, him and his wife birth chart lined up for the most part. She's a sun in Gemini. So all of these things can definitely relate to Malcolm X, and I could see his birth chart lining up with his personality and who he was. So real quick, 'cause I almost forgot. Lastly, I always look up some facts about the person to tell us some things that we might not have known. So there's 7 quick facts about Malcolm X. His father may have been killed by white supremacists. I think they showed that at the beginning of the Malcolm X movie, where their house got burned down. A a vocal supporters of Pan-African leader Marcus Garvey. Malcolm X's parents faced constant threats from white supremacists just before Malcolm's birth. For example, armed Ku Klux Klan rolled out their house in Omaha, Nebraska, and shattered all their windows. Another of their homes burned down a few years later, apparently at the hands of the Black Legion, a Klan splinter group. Even worse, when Malcolm was 6 years old, his father went out one evening to collect a debt, only to be hit by a streetcar and mortally wounded. Though the authorities ruled his death an accident, African Americans in town believed the Black Legion had beat him and placed him on the tracks to be run over. To this day, no one knows for sure. Malcolm also lost other relatives to violence, including an uncle he said was lynched by whites. So, yeah, that's a lot about Malcolm X, for sure. So as you see, he went through a lot with the Ku Klux Klan, and he dealt with real white supremacy, and he came from an era, and he saw a lot, when America was racist, and he had to deal with a lot. He possibly had his dad killed by white supremacists, and then he had an uncle who was lynched, which is crazy. He moved around constantly as a youth. Despite being born in Omaha, Malcolm Little, as he was well known then, because yeah, his name was Malcolm Little before he changed it to Malcolm X. Spent very little time there before his family uprooted first to Milwaukee, then to East Chicago, then to Indiana, and finally to Lansing, Michigan, where his father would be killed. Not long afterwards, Malcolm's mother suffered a nervous breakdown and was shipped off to a mental institution, prompting welfare officials to split Malcolm and his now parentless siblings apart. At first, Malcolm stayed with neighbors. He was sent to juvenile detention home in Madison, Michigan, about 10 miles south of Lansing, where he attended a nearly all-white junior high. Though academically near the top of his class, an English teacher repeatedly told him that being a lawyer was no realistic goal for a nigga. Fed up, he went at age 15 to live with his half sister in Boston, never to attend school again. A railroad job installed in him, and a fondness for travel and by the age of 17, he was residing in New York City neighborhood of Harlem. He spent 6.5 years in jail. As early as age 9, with his family dear economic strengths, Malcolm began robbing food from stores in Lansing. Later on in Boston and New York, he got involved in drug dealing, gambling, and prostitution rackets, spending much of his time in steady nightclubs. At age 19, he was arrested for the first time for allegedly stealing and pawning his half-sister fur coat. A second arrest followed for allegedly mugging an acquaintance at a gunpoint, and a third arrest came after he burglarized a series of Boston area homes. Sentenced to state prison in 1946, his cell block mates called him Satan for his habit of pacing around and multing cusses at God and the Bible. Soon after, however, he settled down and began vicariously devoting his works of history. The horrors of slavery made a particular impression on him, as well as the visionary, all other nonfiction he could get his hands on. He even tried memorizing the dictionary. In a free moment I had, if I was not reading the library, I was reading on my bunk. Malcolm wrote. So yeah, I forgot where I at. It stopped recording. I ain't even have enough space. So that means this video is getting too long. But yeah, so he spent 6.5 years in jail, like I said, and that's where he discovered the Nation of Islam and changed his life around. With the help of Nation of Islam, took off his popularity. Upon he left prison in 1952, he moved with his brother. He moved to his brother's house near Detroit, where he attended the local Nation of Islam and actively sought out new converts, dropping his surname Little, which he considered a slave name, in favor of X. He quickly became a favorite of Elijah Muhammad, who promoted him to minister prior to dispatching him to Boston and Philadelphia to establish new mystiques there. Malcolm then spent a decade as head of Harlem Mystique. In addition to launching a Nation of Islam newspaper, giving speeches at dozens of universities around the country, participating in debates with mainstream civil rights leaders, and occasionally meeting with foreign heads of state. Everywhere he railed against white racism, saying such things as, "We didn't land on Plymouth Rock, my brothers and sisters. Plymouth Rock landed on us." Largely as a result of his efforts, memberships of the Nation of Islam grew from only a few hundred at the time of his conversion to about 6,000 in 1955, and then to an estimated 75,000 in the 1960s. Non-Muslims also took note of his fiery artillery, including Arthur Alex Haley, with whom he would collaborate on his autobiography. He opposed integration. While in the Nation of Islam, Malcolm routinely referred to mainstream civil rights leaders as Uncle Toms, considering them fools for thinking white America would ever willingly give them equality. When Martin Luther King gave his "I Have a Dream" speech in the 1963 March on Washington, Malcolm called it the farce of Washington. Whoever heard of angry revolutionists, all harmonizing we shall overcome, while tripping and swaying along arm in arm with the very people they were supposed to be angrily revolting against, he wrote in his autobiography. A believer in strict separation of the races, he once even entered into secret negotiations with the KKK. Yet after making a religious to Mecca in April 1964, he began his own words to reappraise the white man. From that point forward, Malcolm moved away from the black separatism and wholesome denunciations of white, and instead embraced a more humanistic approach to fighting oppression. He bitterly broke with Elijah Muhammad, though he once Though he once revered Muhammad, Malcolm began having second thoughts after discovering that his mentor had fathered several illegitimate children in direct violation of the Nation of Islam teaching. So yes, that's what ultimately got him killed and why he left the Nation of Islam, because Elijah Muhammad was having kids outside of his marriage, and then I think some of them might have been reportedly even underage. So of course that goes against the Nation of Islam. So he stood up for that. Even though that was his leader, he still knew right was right and wrong was wrong. That's why Malcolm X probably is one of my favorite civil rights leaders and one of my favorite leaders, because him speaking up for what's right is ultimately what got him killed. And most people, if that's your teacher and somebody you look up to, most people would turn a blind eye and not want to question his leader. But Malcolm X was, he actually stood up and questioned his leader, despite how against, the Nation of Islam it was. Because, you're not supposed to speak against your teacher. And he did it publicly. He even spoke out against them. So you have to give Malcolm X a lot of credit for that. And so Muhammad suspended them in 1963. Oh, so it said on February 14th, 1965, someone threw a cocktail at his New York City home, forcing him, his pregnant wife, and his four daughters um, to run to the backyard. Exactly a week later, Nation of Islam members shot him dead at the Elbon Ballroom. The FBI followed his every move. As a prisoner in 1950, Malcolm wrote a letter to President Harry Truman in which he declared himself a communist opposed to the Korean War. This brought him to the attention of the FBI, which began surveillance that would last until his death. And one document that has since come to light, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover told the agency's New York office to do something about Malcolm X. So yeah, that's some things about Malcolm X. Some things if you didn't know about him. So yeah, I ain't gonna make this video too much longer. That's all things about Malcolm X's birth chart. Rest in peace to Malcolm X. Happy belated birthday. His birthday was 2 days ago. And this is the end of Taurus season. We in Gemini season. So of course my next couple videos gonna be about Geminis. There's a lot of Geminis to choose from. We know, especially in the music world, we know a lot of Geminis is in the music world. So I mean, it's a lot for me to choose from. I might do Tupac chart over, because I know I did. Tupac was the first person that I did, and that was early on before I really know how I wanted to shoot and make these videos. So I have to go back and watch it, but it's probably not the best. And then I don't even think I shot it in 4K like I've been doing these recent videos. So I might go back and redo Tupac video. And then I know I got a request for Prince. Somebody wanted me to do Prince, who's a Gemini. And then who else is Gemini? You got Biggie Smalls, Faith Evans, Lauryn Hill, Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar, Ice Cube. So them just some names off the top of my head. So it's some of the people who I'm probably gonna end up doing. So stay tuned and subscribe if you a Gemini, you want to see my upcoming videos. And that's it. The end of Taurus season ends with Malcolm X, and we welcome him in Gemini season now.